Afternoon. It is around the northwest until past, when I'll be handing over to David in the Mount Derrygill Hotel on Jive Time, coming live from there today. Now then, at the young age of 83, Phil Coulter is back in the charts again, would you believe? And it's the first week of the release of a new track for Another King and Country. And it's gone into the iTunes chart at number 8 and straight to number 1 in the songwriters charts. So how many people at the age of 83 manage that? We'll get to that in a moment, but just let you know that he's also been nominated for a Grammy, and this is in 2 categories: Best Global Music Performance and Best Music Video. And as if all that wasn't enough, he's about to head off on a nationwide tour called Tranquility by Candlelight. And there's a number of dates here in the Northwest, in Omagh, and also in Derry at the Millennium Forum, and in Angreenan here in Letterkenny, and at Harvey's Point in Donegal Town. And I am delighted that Phil actually joins us on the line now. Phil, good afternoon, sir.
How are you doing, John? Nice to talk to you.
I'm exhausted reading through all that. You're where did I see it? Where did I see it in the notes? You are definitely not letting the old man in.
Definitely not letting the old man in. No, that was Clint Eastwood's answer when he was asked, how come he keeps making movies and keeps starring in movies, producing movies at the age of, he's 90 something, I think, old Clint.
Wow.
His answer was, "I don't let the old man in." I'm the same. I'm afraid to stop going in case. You know what it's like, Joe? It's like, I believe it's like having an old banger, an old banger of a car, that if you park it outside your door, bits of it fall off. But as long as you keep driving it, it stays together. So I'm the old banger that keeps moving.
Well, let's hope no bits fall off during the tour anyhow.
Hope not.
No.
Hope not. Especially not in Donegal. As people would know, I have a real soft spot for Donegal. It's a great excuse for me to go back to the county and to see so many friends, relatives, whatever, up that part of the world. Letterkenny, I have a long history with Letterkenny. So we're in the Green in there, I think, on the 11th, and Harvey's Point the following day. So that's a couple of dates in Donegal that we always look forward to.
Yeah. And it's an extensive tour, 30 dates. So you're going all around the country, and this is a full-on proper tour.
Yeah, we do the Northern Loop first, and then we continue right down, doing the likes of the National Concert Hall in Dublin, National Opera House in Wexford, and over in Cork, Kerry. We're covering the whole country. I think we finish a few days before Christmas. So my belief, John, is that if you're going to go on tour, it doesn't make any sense to go out and do like a couple of dates one week and a couple of dates the next. When you're in that frame of mind, it's better just to keep her going, Patsy.
And what can people expect? The title of the tour is
Tranquility by Candlelight.
Yes, there you go. So I presume there'll be a bit of candlelight, but some other lights as well. And it'll be you and the piano and some stories and songs. Would that be?
Yeah, that's the basis of it. And we have a couple of great guests. My child bride, Geraldine Brannigan, and George Hutton, the great crossover tenor from Derry. They have been part of the kind of touring package for a while, and it's a nice mix of some of my own songs and stories, and some other stuff that a change of pace with the likes of Geraldine and with George. The Tranquility by Candlelight. Now, the candlelight thing is not my idea. It's not original. I have to own up to that, but it does seem to be flavor of the month. And somebody pointed out to me, what a great combination of tranquility and candlelight. So that's the idea. Every year, John, you try and put a new spin on what you're doing. You try and have a different angle, try and freshen it up. I spent a lot of time in freshening up what the set is going to be, so that, look, there are kind of hardy annuals. There are songs that I have to do every night. Like I couldn't do a show without singing The Town I Love So Well, or Scorn Not His Simplicity, or maybe even Ireland's Call. There are certain songs that just that kind of pillars of anything that I would do. So they always find their way in there. But then we always freshen it up and do like new stuff that we haven't played for a while, maybe from albums that go back a few years. But the basic theme of it all is that sense of the old classic tranquility thing. Great Irish tunes played with a bit of a nice kind of textures.
And people at your concerts, I would imagine, are amazed when it's just one song they know after another song they know, and then another song they recognize that, oh my goodness, did he write that? And
Yeah.
oh, was he involved in that? And it's one after the other after the other.
Well, people sometimes get a little bit surprised that I'm the same guy who wrote like "Scorn Not His Simplicity" for Luke Kelly and "Shang a Lang" for the Bay City Rollers.
Yeah, there's some gap
You know,
there. Yeah.
of course, but my explanation, John, is always that I'm a professional songwriter. That's what I do. I learned my trade all those years ago in Tin Pan Alley back in the '60s. And one thing you learned was that you couldn't afford to be pigeonholed into one specific area. You need to have the flexibility to move within the different styles. For example, now, if when I had that run of success in the Eurovision Song Contest with winning a puppet on a string in '67, and congratulations in '68, all kinds of everything in 1970, Toi with Geraldine Branigan coming fourth in 1974. If I had thought to myself, that's it now, I'm a Eurovision songwriter, I've got this well
Hmm.
down pat,
Hmm.
I've got a good handle on this, I would have been dead in the water a few years later. Equally so, when I hadn't the run with the Teeny Barber band, like the Bay City Rollers and Kenny and Slick. We had a whole stable of them. Again, we had a lot of hits with those guys. But if I had thought, right, this is what I do, again, I would have been dead in the water. You have to be able to move, as effortlessly as possible between, the likes of Ireland's Call and My Boy for Elvis Presley. They're different kinds of songs, but at the end of the day, you judge a song by the quality of the song, not the style.
Yeah. Well, you refuse to be pigeonholed, that is for sure. But when I say a lot of people are going to be surprised, I mean, you just surprised me just there now. I knew about Cliff Richard and Sandy Shaw. I didn't know all kinds of everything.
Yeah, I was the producer and the publisher of that song. I found that song, and I kind of tweaked it a bit. I found it in the early heats in RTE before it was even chosen to represent Ireland. Um, Written by two part-time songwriters, two printers, two nice lads, and I signed the song to our publishing company and sprinkled it with a little bit of Eurovision fairy dust. Did a
Hmm.
different arrangement. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was great, especially to give Ireland a win in the Eurovision.
Yeah, yeah,
That
it
was the
was.
first.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant, and it's so memorable, and even to this day, you say that you're just a songwriter, but no, you're not. You're a producer and you're a singer, and the number of names that you've worked with and sang with down through the years, and I'm going to throw a few of them at you. You just mentioned one big one there, Elvis. I mean, you wrote a song for Elvis.
Yeah, that's one of my prouder boasts. And uh, uh, after I've had a few glasses of wine, I'm inclined to bore the ass of my friends by reminding them that I'm the only non-American songwriter I've written a hit single for Elvis Presley. When I think back, John, when I was a teenager, in the attic room of our little terraced house in Derry, and listening on a beat up radio to Elvis Presley singing "Heartbreak Hotel" and "Don't Be Cruel," "The Hound Dog." Never in a million years did I ever think that Elvis Presley would sing one of my songs. But that's the thing about the music industry. It can break your heart, and it can be very disappointing. It can be very cruel, and there's no guarantee that all the talent in the world and all the hard work in the world is going to lead to success. It can be very disappointing, very cruel. But occasionally, when the planets are in a line and it all works,
Mm.
then miracles do happen. So for me, like a rookie from a terraced house in Derry, to have a top three record with Elvis Presley, that's those kind of impossibilities can happen.
Funny you should say that because people are defined by their successes, but you probably had, like anybody that's been a success, you've had many many failures. But it's how you deal with them and then appreciate and enjoy the successes that define somebody.
100%. 100%. I mean, to have been, I mean, I'm proud of the fact that I've had a record in the charts in every decade since the '60s. Well, that didn't fall in my lap, and not every song that I wrote was a hit. Not every record that I made was a hit, but you're 100% right. You know, it's character building apart from anything else.
Yeah.
The first thing you learn when you embark on a career in this industry is don't fall in love with everything that you write. You know,
Try-
don't feel that you're entitled. I mean, even at this advanced stage in my career, I don't feel I'm entitled to anything. Okay, we had a number one record like a few months ago with For Another King and Country. I was as excited about that as I was with my first chart entry back in 1964. You
mm.
know, I mean, I don't think I'm entitled. I'm only entitled to what I can produce. I'm as good as my last song, or indeed, I'm as good as my last tour. That's why I put a lot of effort into preparing any show for a tour. Then where you find me right now, I'm surrounded by sheet music, and I'm sitting at the piano here working on the set list for the next tour and for Letterkenny, Harvey's Point, and further on.
The you mentioned the latest hit and also the first hit. I mean, the first one must be really special because you don't know what to expect. And this was 19 all the way back to 1964 in
Yeah,
Butchmoor.
yeah, that was well. I mean, I suppose honestly, you could draw a line. You know, you could join up the dots from 1964 Butch Moore and my first record on the charts. That was the start of the journey. You know, that's what made it possible. That chart entry got me to London, got me introduced to a publisher and an agent in London, got me my first job as an office boy. And I learned the reality. I thought I was coming out of university, having studied music in university. I had a top three record in Ireland. So I arrived in London thinking I was these bee's knees. And I thought it's only going to be a matter of time before I'm arranging scores for the major orchestras. In point of fact, what I spent the first number of months doing was arranging sandwiches for the office girls. You know, I was the bottom of the food chain, but I learned the hard way. You know, you have to learn your trade and you have to knuckle down. So yeah, I was very well aware of the fact that disappointment, knockbacks, they're part of the deal. As you said earlier on, the real test is how you pick yourself up. You know.
Yeah. Just a few other names to throw to you, and brief reminiscences. Perhaps we mentioned Elvis, but perhaps the other end of the spectrum, Luke Kelly, the great Luke Kelly.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, I have a project which I put together with John Sheehan, the last of the Dubliners. It's a project called the Dubliners Encore. We just had a successful run of a week in the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin. Some tour now in the UK and then going on to Germany. And it's five lads that we recruited over a couple of years to recreate the music and the magic of the Dubliners. And these are all lads who grew up in that tradition. They're all kind of in their 30s, but like we didn't get them from agencies or central casting. I mean, it's a Donegal lad, James Gallagher, from Creeslough, who does the Luke Kelly voice. And we found him busking in the street and Shop Street in Galway. That's where we found these lads. They are the real McCoy. And then, of course, we had to kind of, drill them and give them that kind of theatrical discipline. But that project has been very successful. We sold out a week in the Gaiety, as I said. We're now looking at a very successful tour in the UK. So it's keeping that spirit and the magic of the Dubliners alive. And for me, a few weeks ago in the Gaiety Theatre, to sit there and hear James Gallagher from Donegal singing "The Town I Love So Well," and he does a superb job, a real tribute to Luke Kelly, and to get a standing ovation in the middle of the show was for me was very moving because the song is a right few years old now, and to think that it still has that power to move people is something that I find very humbling, to be honest. So yeah, Luke he loomed very large in my life. Luke
There's
was the man that when I took over producing the Dubliners, I already was successful as a songwriter. I'd written Eurovision hits and hits and pop music, Cliff Richard, etc., etc. But the Dubliners were singularly unimpressed with all of that. They didn't think that mattered a damn bit. So I had to really prove myself to the Dubs. And Luke was the one who was continually badgering me to write songs that would go a little deeper than Puppet on a String or Congratulations, songs that had a bit of substance. And if I hadn't had that kind of encouragement from Luke to write, first of all, Scorn Not His Simplicity was my first move down that particular road. with encouragement to look. And as I say, he did the definitive recording of that song. Without him, I may never have written it. And moving on from that, equally so, The Town I Love So Well, when I was sitting down to write that song, and so much going on in my head about what was happening in Derry, in my hometown, the voice that was clearly in my head as I was shaping that song was Luke Kelly.
Listen, there's so many other names that we could mention that you've worked with, Henry Mancini, Sinead O'Connor, Richard Harris, but I want to talk about a more recent success. Well, two things really. Now, first of all, you were in the charts last year with Jade from Little Mix, almost accidentally, with a sample of Puppet on a String. But now, recently in the charts, as I said, the iTunes charts with For Another King and Country, and this is with the two fellas from Picture This. You collaborated with them.
That was a story. This is For Another King and Country is more than a song. It's a story. It's a heartbreaking story. I'll give you a quick breakdown. Ralph McTell, of the Streets of London, Ralph McTell, is a great pal of mine. And he was working on a project on the First World War. He's very interested in that period. And he had a family member, I think a great uncle, who fought and died in the Great World War. And in conversation about it, Phil, you realise there were tens of thousands of Irish soldiers who fought in the First World War. I hadn't realised that. But I did some homework and discovered that there was a family in Waterford, the Collins family in Waterford. There were seven brothers, 5 of whom joined the British Army, 5 of whom fought in the First World War, 4 of whom died or perished in the First World War. To me, it was like Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah,
without the Hollywood ending. So to me, it was very, very moving. And what was particularly poignant was when William Collins, who was the one survivor, when he came back on compassionate leave because his 4 brothers had died, he couldn't boast about his bravery in the First World War. Why? Because in the Nidhogg period, the 1916 rebellion had happened. The leaders were executed. So there was a great anti-British feeling that was rife in the country. So the landscape had changed dramatically. So all of the lads who fought for the British in the First World War, who went off wanting to be heroes, came back really as pariahs. They couldn't really talk about their time in the British Army because they were regarded really as treason, as being treacherous to Ireland. So the poor bugger now, having lost his 4 brothers, and been shot at and bombed at in Flanders and the Somme, comes back to Ireland, and he can't mention it. He's a pariah in Waterford. So I found that a very moving story. And I got together with the 2 lads in Picture This, Jimmy and Ryan, to complete the song, and recorded it with I call him the last of the great balladeers from Cork, Roy Buckley. It was a real labour of love because I knew, there was a serious message in this song. I love a good story song, and this certainly was all of that. And it was a great validation when the record went to #1 on the Irish charts and gave us that kind of a profile. I was very pleased about that, I have to say.
And rightly so. We're going to play out with it, but I just want to remind listeners that you're on tour next month into December, 30 dates around the country here in the Northwest. Wednesday the 5th in Omagh at the Struhl Arts Centre. Sunday the 9th of November, the Millennium Forum in Derry. Then on Tuesday the 11th in Greenland Theatre here in Letterkenny. And Wednesday the 12th in Harvey's Point, Donegal Town. Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure. Good luck on the tour and beyond. And we will chat again.
We certainly will. Can I say congratulations to the people in Buncrana for being voted on the tidiest town in
Just
Donegal.
heard that in the headlines as well. Brilliant news.
That's one of my other hometowns. I lived there for a while. I love the people there, so pass that on to. Thanks, John. I enjoyed the chat.
Good luck.
My name is William Collins, born and